Good morning and welcome to Fast Horses Today. Today is Saturday. It is July 19th, and it will be day 2 of the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club Summer Meet. So we'll get started here at Del Mar. So we'll start off with a little bit of the Del Mar theme music from Bing Crosby. So as Bing Crosby says, where the turf meets the surf at Old Del Mar, we'll get started there today. And get started, I've got a couple win bets. I've got 3 win bets today, and I'm also going to look into the late pick 5. So we'll get started with the win bets first. First one is going to be in the first race, which does have an approximate post time about 2 o'clock there Pacific time, so 4 o'clock here in the Central Time Zone. We're starting off with a maiden special weight Calbred race, 5 furlongs on the dirt, and these are Calbred fillies, 2-year-olds. So they're running for the 100,000. As we talked about yesterday, Del Mar has implemented a boost in the maiden races, including the Calbred races, so we'll see. You know, it will result in people trying really hard to win these big pots. So, 100,000 is a big purse for a maiden. So get started here. We've got a win bet on the 9 horse, who is Mohaven, for John Sadler. John Sadler legs up Hector Barrios here. Now, this horse has had some nice works. They paid some really good money for a Calbred, $200,000 filly by Yalpan. Now, Yalpan is a new sire. His first crop has just come out. And it seems like the Yalpans have done pretty well, and I expected that. A couple years back, I was talking with a friend of mine about new sires and where they should breed, and Yalpan was one of the horses that I had mentioned. I thought that we could see some precocious horses by Yalpan. So I like this horse here. It's a Calbred. We'll see if the breeding works out there in the Calbred ranks. This horse is 5-2. As I mentioned, has some nice works. Sadler, is usually loaded for bear here in the Del Mar Summer Meet. This horse is 5-2, so no secret here. We'll see if we can get 5-2, but we'll make a win bet on the 9 horse, Mohaven, in the first race. Now let's move over to the third race of the day. Third race is another maiden special weight. This is an open company race. This is a 5 furlong grass event. And these are 3-year-olds and up. And nice field sign on here. Some nice horses here. Maybe some, future allowance horses, stakes horses in this field. We'll see. But I've got a horse that I want to make a win bet on, who's a bit of a price here. That being the 6 horse, Reno. For the Peter Urton barn, Tiago Pereira is up here. This horse is 8-1 in the program. This horse has the benefit of running one time. And I thought ran in a very live race, won by Sierra Silver. Sierra Silver was absolutely overdue, ready to win a maiden race, having gone up against some toughies. And Sierra Silver was a tough one to beat that day. But if you look at the running line here in that first start for Reno, this horse had a nice outside post in a 7 furlong race, got out and showed some speed, and showed some nice speed, which I would expect this horse to do this today in this 5 furlong grass race. So whether the horse gets out and clears the field, or maybe just sits in a pocket, I think this horse, should run pretty well here on this 5 furlong grass event. The horse is collected by City Zips. City Zips are always very good on the grass, and especially sprinting. And out of an Indian Charlie mare, and Indian Charlie certainly has produced nice grass offspring as well. So this horse definitely bred for the grass, has the benefit of one start, showed speed, faded there. I think Reno will be up for a really nice effort here. So I'm going to make a win bet on the 3 horse Reno. A win bet in the third race on the 6 horse Reno. All right, now let's move over to the next race. I've got a win bet, and that would be in the 5th race. The 5th race is another 5 furlong grass event, and this is a first level allowance race. These are 3-year-olds only. And I got a win bet in the 5th race on the 1 horse Comeback Girl for Leonard Powell. Ayuso takes the call here. Ayuso had the horse last time. I liked this horse last time, and I think she had scored in a pick 3 for me that day, I believe. But as I recall, but this horse, nice running line there. This horse is 8-1 in the program. I'm not sure we're going to get 8-1, but I think that she is going to be a horse that's versatile here. If she wants to lead, from the 1 hole, I think she'll go and get it. If the 3 horse was Proud Starlet, is hell-bent on getting that lead and goes, then maybe, the 1 would sit right behind and make a move. So I think this Comeback Girl, by Speightstown out of a Warfront mare, certainly grass, and certainly grass sprinting. She ran a really nice race last time at Santa Anita, 6.5 on the grass. That was the flat grass. Now, I don't always feel like those flat grass races translate to the Del Mar sprints, but I just like the way this horse showed speed, and how she did it, and some of the internal fractions were very fast. Should really work nicely on this 5 furlong configuration over at Del Mar. So 8-1, as I mentioned, comeback girl. I think she could come back and win 2 in a row. So we'll make a win bet in the 5th race on the 1 horse. That's comeback girl. All right, so let's move on in the card now. I know the 6th race does start the pick 6, where there's a big carryover there, and should be some really nice pools to bet into in the latter half of the card. Now I studied the pick 6, and I just don't have a ticket that I feel is affordable today that I couldn't narrow down appropriately. So I'm going to pass on the pick 6, but I wish you the best of luck if you decide to go with the pick 6. But here's what I do notice is when they have those pick 6 carryovers, the late pick 5 really ends up being a nice pool as well, because people are bringing in a lot of money. They get into that pick 6. If they get knocked out there, they put it into the pick 5. So the pick 5, to me, always seems to be worth betting on those pick 6 carryover days. Its history has kind of shown that. So I do have a late pick 5 that I do like, which does start in the 7th race. 7th race starts us off mile on the grass. This is the Wicker Stakes. This is a $100,000 restricted stakes. And these are for 3-year-olds and up, which haven't won a sweepstakes, $50,000 or more, since last October. So, there's your condition here. So it's a stakes race, but it kind of works similar to an allowance race. So I think it's a tough field signed on. We've got some horses that are off layoffs. We've got, definitely a lot of accomplished horses here. And, the Wicker, and in my recollection, does result in some nice payouts there from what I recall. So I'm going to put 4 horses in this race. I feel like one of these horses should get this pick 5 started and moved along. I'm going to go with the 3 horse Beyond Brilliant for John Sheriffs and Drayden Van Dyke. This horse is 7-2 in the program. This horse definitely has an affinity for Del Mar, having won 2 of 4 starts on the turf. Definitely has won some big races. Here's the hitch on this horse. This horse hasn't been out since November of 22. I had debated throwing this horse out. John Sheriff is a guy that doesn't have horses ready off the bench, but this horse certainly has a lot of class, has a good running style. We'll see if this horse is placed at 7-2 in the program. I'm going to put him in. I think maybe Van Dyke can work out a trip. We'll give Van Dyke a chance here. If Van Dyke shows something with this horse, we'll look forward to playing him more throughout the meet. So we'll put Beyond Brilliant. That's the 3 horse. I am going to put the 7 horse, who is Bran for John Sadler and Vincent Chaminade. And this horse is 5-1 in the program, the 7, Bran. This horse is another accomplished horse. Has done a lot of his work in the turf sprints, at various places. So he's shown some versatility, but he's also shown that he could run a mile. So he could run a mile on the grass at Del Mar. So that's what this is. Now, Bran is 5-1. We saw Chaminade win a race yesterday. He did some good riding yesterday in his opening day debut there at Del Mar. And Chaminade has ridden it in California before, so he's certainly familiar. Sadler's given him the horse here. I think this horse, coming off 2 sprints over at Santa Anita, having run in the Siren Lure, which is a 6 furlong grass race, ran very nice that day, and then running in the Grade 3 Daytona, which is a down the hill event. He went up against Motorius that day. And Motorius is a very tough horse to beat there in California. And I thought Brand ran a really nice race. Had a little traffic trouble in the stretch, to come second to Motorius. I think those 2 races set this horse up for a nice mile run here. So we'll put Brand in there. That's the 7 horse. And I'm going to put the 10 horse, who is Astronomer. Astronomer for what's become my nemesis, Simon Callahan. Callahan trainer, Kimura is the rider. This horse, I've been familiar with since, for a few years now. I had scored with him on a big price on Breeders' Cup weekend a few years back when Del Mar hosted the Breeders' Cup. He ran at a big price. And this horse has done a lot of his damage at Del Mar, having a great record there with 2 of his wins coming at Del Mar and winning some pretty good money. Also, this horse does like running at a mile. So it's just a matter of, is Simon Callahan going to have this horse ready off the bench? This horse hasn't run since February. The horse has run well off layoffs, before. Has been working nicely as well. So Kimura has ridden this horse nicely. So I'm going to put Astronomer. I remember when I took out Astronomer a couple years back out of a late pick 5, and this horse came and beat me at 20-1, and that was a heartbreaker. So don't want to see that happen again. So we'll put Astronomer, see if he could reach into his back class and run today in the Wicker. And then finally we'll put the 11 horse, who is Endlessly. Now Endlessly is another very accomplished horse at the distance and at Del Mar, being 2 for 2 at Del Mar on the turf course. So this horse, started out his career doing really nice work back in 2023 on the grass. They saw fit to try and go the Derby route with this horse. They won the El Camino Real, which is a historic stakes there up in Northern California, and ended up parlaying that into the Jeff Ruby Stakes win over at Turfway Park. So that prompted them to put the horse in the Kentucky Derby and the Belmont Derby. This horse probably a little bit, bit off more than he could chew. Doesn't probably want the dirt. They ended up giving the horse a break, and he's run twice this year and run twice on the back on the turf. And I feel like they gave this horse a lot to do this year as well. He'd come off a pretty long layoff, ran in the Grade 3 American over at Santa Anita, and ran third that day. So that was a nice race. And they, got very ambitious with this horse and sent this horse over to Saratoga during Belmont Stakes Weekend Festival. Ran in the Grade 1 Manhattan, and the horse ran okay there. It was even effort, but he ran up against some nice horses in Deterministic, Farbridge, and Integration. Those are some really nice turf horses. So I feel like he's getting class relief here. He's putting blinkers on. They're putting Hector Barrios on. So those are 3 changes I think are positives. And Endlessly should be raring to go, I feel, today at 6-1. So we've got the 3, 7, 10, 11 to start off this pick 5 in the 7th race. All right, let's go to the 8th race of the day. 8th race is a California special weight, maiden special weight race, 5 furlongs on the dirt. And these are 2-year-olds. Some interesting horses here. I think it's a little more wide open, than the betting morning line says. I am going to put the 1 horse, Thirsty Rebel from the 1 hole. He's 3-1. Will probably end up being the favorite based off his sizzling works. Sometimes I feel like that inside post is not so good, but this horse really is that fast. Maybe he just clears this field and goes. So we'll put Thirsty Rebel, and in case that doesn't happen, we got to have a backup plan. So I'm going to put the 4 horse, who is Forever Ben, for Carla Gaines. This is a horse's second start, which Carla Gaines does well, second start. This horse had 1 start over at Santa Anita, ended up running third that day. I thought it had a very tough trip for a new horse, a baby. I thought the horse ran on nicely, showed some talent in that initial maiden run, having a tough trip. They switched to jock. They go from Tyler Bays to Juan Hernandez. That's certainly a plus there. I think Hernandez will do well with this horse at 5-1. And I'm going to go on the outside here. I'm going to put the 9, who is Closing Time, for Craig DeLossi. Ayuso takes the call. This horse has a nice outside post. We see a lot of Cowbirds by Stay Thirsty. They win races. This horse is a long shot, 12-1, but has some nice works, and may be able to pick up the pieces if they go crazy early. And then finally, I'm going to put the 10 horse, who is Moonshiner for Van Belvoir, and Kazushi Kimura back on the horse. Now, this horse has the benefit of having 2 races under his belt. He started his career over at Turf Paradise, running in a maiden optional claimer. That was probably just to get a race over. They ended up taking the horse to Santa Anita, and he ran a nice race, I thought, in a maiden special weight there. He showed some good speed. He ended up getting caught near the wire, but what I liked is I felt the horse responded when challenged. And, I think that this third start can certainly work out well from the 10 hole. This horse is 12-1. The horse ends up going for the lead and clears. That's fine. Or if Kazushi Kimura decides to stalk, that would be fine too. I see a really nice work at San Luis Rey, where he worked faster than he actually ran in a race. So that's really nice work there. So it shows me he's ready. So I'm going to put the 10 Moonshiner, I think an improved effort from his last. So I've got the 1, 4, 9, and 10. All right, now let's move over to the next race, which is the 9th race. This is the feature on the card. This is the Grade 2 San Clemente. Mile on the turf, and these are 3-year-old fillies. Always a nice race every year. And they're 3-year-old series races on the grass for fillies. There's 2 horses here. I feel like this race just boils down to the 2 horses. If you single the favorite, certainly won't blame you. But I'm going to put 2 horses in. I'm going to put the 1, who is Will Then, for Jonathan Thomas, Mike Smith. This horse has shown a lot of nice ability. Has shown ability over at Del Mar, winning the Grade 3 Jimmy Durante in a really nice fashion, and coming back, winning the China Dow over at Santa Anita. And they took this horse over to Churchill Downs. He ran into Edgewood, but this horse ran with some really tough horses, running with horses like Nitrogen, Lush Lips, Vixen. I mean, a horse like Nitrogen just seems to be breathing different air in the 3-year-old filly division. So there won't be any horses like that today. But I feel like Will Then will work out a nice trip from the 1 hole. Mike Smith, in a graded race, certainly one to watch. So 4 to 1, we'll put Will Then. And then I will put the favorite, who is Thought Process. For Phil D'Amato, Hector Berrios, this horse is 8 to 5 in the program. This horse has done a whole lot right in her career. She's done well on the turf, done well at Del Mar, done well at the distance, being 4 out of 5 at mile on the grass, 2 out of 3 wins at Del Mar. There was she certainly ran with big-time horses running with Lake Victoria and Nitrogen last year in the Breeders' Cup filly turf, which is a grade 1. She ran a nice race. I mean, she took the lead, ended up falling apart in the stretch, but she got passed by some monsters, so I don't fault her for that. They gave this horse a break. They brought her out one time over at Santa Anita. She ran a sparkling mile race on the grass, and just a prep for things to come. So that just got her off the bench. Did well there. Nice speed figure. Berrios takes the call back here. She's 8 to 5, so certainly we'll put Thought Process. So we've got the 1 and the 5. All right, now let's move over to the next race of the day. Next race being the 10th race. This is a mile on the dirt. This is a first-level allowance race. These are 3-year-olds and up. I think a really nice field sign on here, very competitive. I've got 3 horses I'm going to put in. I'm going to put the 2 Baffert horses, that being the 1 horse Tis Secure and the 2 horse Varney. Now, Tis Secure draws the 1 hole 5 to 2 in the program. Juan Hernandez. Hernandez has been on this horse for all of his starts. This horse started out his career, ended up running a nice race, breaking his maiden first time out, which is always a plus there. Now, this is a nicely bred horse. I really like the mare here, the brood mare here, Tough Tis Assist. I remember her being a really tough horse, and several years ago, she gave Zenyatta hell one day. I remember back at, I think it was Hollywood Park, but I have to check that. But Tough Tis Assist, they've definitely bred a couple horses. She's dropped some decent ones. So Tis Secure, showing a good propensity to run. They took this horse over to Churchill Downs on Derby weekend. Ended up running a really nice race on a sloppy track, getting beat by Goal Oriented, which is also another Baffert horse. Now, Goal Oriented we saw run in the Preakness in a real battle there in the Preakness, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Goal Oriented is one of the top choices in the Haskell today over at Monmouth. So certainly nothing wrong with running against Goal-Oriented, and as well as Hypnus. Hypnus ended up coming back and winning. So Tis Secure, nice horse, has a great post. We'll see what he does. Couple changes. They gelded this horse, so he's running in a little lighter than he did before, and he'll be running on a dry track. So we'll see. I'll put that horse in. I'm going to put the 2 horse who is Varney. Varney also for Bob Baffert. Big purchase price, $775,000 purchase. This horse has been running a few times in Southern California. Tried Santa Anita. Had an odd race back in the wintertime in February where the horse was a big favorite that day. Got out of the gate nicely. And then just kind of something strange happened around the turn. It looked like Hernandez just kind of pulled the horse up and took care of him. That race was won by Baeza. So there's certainly no shame in losing to Baeza, that's for sure. Horse also ran with Goal Oriented, which we talked about. So Varney's 8 to 1. I don't know that we're going to see 8 to 1. This horse certainly has a lot of ability. They took him over to Pimlico, and he broke his maiden on Preakness Day, which I don't know that that's the biggest accomplishment, but the horse ran nicely there. And I like the follow-up race over at Los Alamitos. He ran in the Los Al Derby, running second to his barn mate in Nevada Beach. But I thought he ran a nice race there. So we'll see. This horse might be ready to go here at a mile here on the dirt. So we'll put the 2 Varney. And then finally, I will put the 8 horse. 8 horse out of the John Sadler barn, Indispensable. Hector Berrios takes the call. Now this horse... if you look, you see this horse really ran well at Del Mar last year. He got really good in the summertime, posting some big speed figures, running well at Del Mar. They were going to put this horse on the Derby. Well, not the Kentucky Derby Trail, but this horse, developed later. But they put this horse in the other minor derbies, ended up running in the Oklahoma Derby and the Zia Park Derby, and ran nice races there. And it gave this horse a break. So I'm not sure if it was a planned break or not, but he had come out once this year running back in June over at Santa Anita. He was a favorite that day, so it makes me think this horse had been training really well. Just really kind of ran a flat effort. Got beat by his barn mate in Pony Express, who ended up just taking the lead and wiring that field. So we'll forgive him for that. 4 to 1. We'll see if this horse comes back to Del Mar and runs well. Now, he's a 4-year-old running with some younger horses, so he might have an advantage there. So we'll put the 8 horse, who is Indispensable. So we've got the 1, 2, and the 8. All right, now let's go to the final race of the day. Final race being the 11th race. This has an approximate post time about 7 o'clock Pacific, so that's 9 o'clock here, Central Time Zone. Ends up being a long day. So that's a mile on the grass. This is another first-level allowance race here. Another nice field of horses signed on, a big field here. We've got a field of 12 if there are no scratches. We're recording this before any scratches, so we got a big field here. I'm going to put 3 horses here in this race. I'm hoping we got a nice live ticket. We've got 3 horses in coverage. Going to put the 7, who is Quick Brown Fox, for Richard Mandella. And Kazushi Kimura takes the call. Now, this horse, there was a lot of buzz about this horse when she first started her career. She's a very well-bred horse by Justify out of the mare Bast, who Bast was a big-time performer at Del Mar several years back. So I know this horse had a lot of buzz. Her first start was last year back in the spring at Santa Anita, and they ended up putting this horse in a 7-furlong race, which is ambitious, and she just lost on the wire, showed a lot of ability there, ended up getting beat. And apparently something went amiss. This horse came back about a year later, breaking her maiden in a turf race. Now, this horse, ended up running a 6-furlong grass race and ran really nicely. Ended up, just flying in the stretch, and Flavin Pratt just did a masterful job with this horse. So maybe, it might have opened the eyes to the Mandella barn that maybe this is a turf horse, even though they might have thought dirt originally. So, they tried back on the dirt and going a mile there on the Santa Anita dirt course there and running in a first level allowance like this is. I don't know that she wanted to do that. And, her return back to the turf, she ran a very nice race running down the hill in a first level allowance race, getting beat near the wire in a pretty nice effort. So Quick Brown Fox at 7-2, certainly worth putting in here. I think she'll be a turf horse here. Going to also put the 11 horse being Rosalie May from Michael McCarthy, Juan Hernandez. Now, it looks to me like, something happened here when Hernandez got on this horse. This horse really got good when Hernandez came aboard her. So, some nice speed figures. She ended up winning a couple of the starter allowance races there at Santa Anita on the grass. And, she followed that up with a really nice effort moving up in class in a allowance race. So she ran in a mile and an eighth, took the lead, ended up getting beat near the wire. The horse that won that race was a really nice horse in Paradise Lake, and it took all of Frankie Dettori's might to win that race, beating Rosalie May by less than a length. So Rosalie May has shown a lot of ability on the grass, so we'll put her in at 3-1. And then finally we'll put the 12 horse, who is the other Mandella barnmate here, that being Defiant. So Mandella trains, Mirko DeMuro rides. Now, Mirko DeMuro, we saw win a race yesterday. Now, DeMuro, I remember him, being in California probably about 22 years ago, something like that. I remember him riding there, and he also ran here in Chicago for a while several years ago. So, DeMuro's a guy who's tried, the U.S. racing circuits, over the years, and it looks like, he's trying to do it again. And, getting off with a win on opening day certainly will open up the eyes, and trainers will be looking to ride him. So, I think Mandella had some connection with him, with DeMuro, and he's riding for him here, so that's a nice thing. This horse has had a couple nice races in her last couple starts, putting up some nice speed figures. Last time she ended up running with Rosalie May, and that race, I thought she was compromised by a pretty wide trip, and finished up nicely, I thought. So, at 12-1, we'll put Defiance in here. So we've got the 7, 11, and 12. All right, now let's recap the day and recap the tickets. Okay, so for Saturday, July 19th, we've got some bets here, some win bets, and we do have a late pick 5. So the win bets. In the first race, we're going to make a win bet on the 9, Mo Haven. And go to the third race, win bet on the 6, Reno. Go to the 5th race, a win bet on the 1, Comeback Girl. All right, now let's move over to the 7th race, where the 7th race starts your late pick 5. In the late pick 5, we're going to go with the 3, 7, 10, 11 with the 1, 4, 9, 10 with the 1, 5 with the 1, 2, 8 with the 7, 11, 12. Now that late pick 5 ticket starting in the 7th race is a $144 play. I think it's worth it because it's really tough today. I think we'll see some nice payoffs like we did yesterday. So if you see fit to play as is, I wish you the best of luck. If you want to add or subtract, you can do that, or make the win bets, whatever you decide to do. I wish you the best of luck. Let's wish the folks a very safe day of racing over at Del Mar on their second day. Let's wish ourselves some good trips. As we see, good trips do result and some nice wins over at Del Mar. So, as always, I do thank you so much for watching Fast Horses today. Thank you to everyone who watched yesterday. We had a nice day of viewership and subscribers. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Doesn't cost you anything. Think of it as, like an Uber Eats. It delivers the content to you for free. You could like, dislike, make comments. I promise respond to everything. And, I wish you a best day here for Del Mar. And let's make it a nice day. So let's try to make it a winning day in the second day of the Del Mar meet.